Well, well, well. Uh, Good morning. Hello. The title for today's video is We Are Dealing with Cosmic and Planetary Outlaws. To me, it doesn't matter what we call them, fallen angels, jinn, archons, or any other name. They are the dark side of creation. Their activity is finally being seen all over the planet, and likely in the outer reaches of the universe as well. They are the violators of life, destroyers who have operated outside the law of one and created chaos everywhere. Throughout time, many chose to ignore them as much as possible. Many still do. However, more and more of us are starting to stand up to this evil cabal in all dimensions, saying loudly, "No more." For me, I'm sensing a holy boldness again. I don't know how that will play out experientially, but it's good to feel it rising within me to overcome the fears with which I have been assailed, along with the entire human race. I imagine that I am not alone in this feeling. Many, or may, these energies increase as we deal with the cosmic and planetary outlaws on the way to co-creating a world that works for everyone. And once again, I typed a word incorrectly. Anyway, save. Oh my goodness. Today, or the day that this video is actually showing, the 10th, begins my 32nd year in Florida. I moved here on March the 10th in 1983. So it's finished. I finished 31 full years here. And I must say that since Dr. Mary died, they have been the most interesting years of that time. Not necessarily the most fulfilling, certainly the most challenging, because that was when the lawsuit hit. As soon as I moved into this house, things started happening in the legal field where I had never been involved in legal matters before in my entire life. But the dark energies for me came to the surface as a result of dealing with a criminal system that, quite honestly, when the lawsuit hit, I didn't realize how criminal it was. I went out and hired a lawyer, and then when I realized he was working for himself and not for me, I fired him, and then I hired another lawyer, and he was an alcoholic and uh, was very ill prepared and not very well equipped as a lawyer. So much so that when we did a deposition of the one of the parties in the lawsuit, he took a break and had to go outside and ask me what questions to ask, and was just simply not prepared. And then he sent me a bill for several $1,000s, which I couldn't pay. I'd already told him I didn't have enough money, that I had run to the end of my nest egg, if you will. Uh-oh, I forgot to turn the phone off. And let me just see who that is. Oh my goodness.
3, 2, 1, 2, 5, 8, 6, 9, 8, 7.
Tony, you're now in the video. I forgot to turn the phone off. Is everything go at 2 o'clock? Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Yes. All right, thanks. Okay, bye. Sorry about that, folks. That's the first time I've ever taken a phone call and actually talked live in the video. And that was my friend, the Reiki master, Tony, and he and Maria will be doing a session with me again this afternoon. And you know, after I had the other session, I didn't feel better. I felt worse. But since I got on and talked with my friend about it that night, and then I made the video yesterday, something has shifted in my energy. And as I said in the blurb, I'm feeling more of a holy boldness. I'm realizing that the powers that I'm dealing with, the powers that we're all dealing with, the quote authority figures, the principalities and powers, the evil in high places and stuff like that, they hate light. And the lights are coming on everywhere. They hate truth, and the truth is being told everywhere. They can't avoid it anymore. Their day is done. The handwriting is on the wall. It's coming to a conclusion. And I don't know where I was when the phone rang, what I was talking about, because I've already forgotten that, because I'm in a new train of thought. But in any case, these fallen angels, these jinn, these archons, have elements in us. The psychopaths that we deal with in the human form, okay, the sociopaths, they have elements in us. And the element that's in us is denial. That's the element that's in us that relates to their energy. And so many spiritual people, now light workers that call themselves, Christians that call themselves, Muslims that call themselves, Jews that call themselves, Buddhists and Hindus, practice denial. Now, who does that serve? When you're unwilling to come into the light and tell it like it is, when you make up stories to cover the truth, and you avoid anything that's considered negative or against you. Isn't that what the jinn have done? Isn't that what the fallen angels have done? Isn't that the energy of the present evil world? And it's changing, isn't it? Many are finally realizing that you do not accomplish your goal of creating something good for yourself by denying the challenges that you're facing because you're calling them dark energies or evil. It doesn't work by doing that. That spiritual practice is a practice in futility. You're not going to accomplish what you think you're going to accomplish by turning your back on the shadow. The shadow is us. The shadow is God. The shadow is creation. The shadow is everywhere. And how do you deal with the shadow? You don't do it by denial. You don't do it by avoidance. You don't do it by wearing masks. You don't do it by putting on armor. You don't do it any other way than to address it openly, honestly, compassionately, firmly, lovingly. And love is firm. It is no more. We've had enough. I'm not going to put up with this shit anymore. And recognize that it's not just coming from them, it's coming from inside of me. And I need to deal with this inside of me. And then deal with it inside of the world that I live in. It's all inside. It's all an inside job. Even out there is still in here. Because inner and outer are one thing. Upper and lower are one thing. In truth, all polarities dance. In our experience, the polarities have not danced. They've dueled. Stopping the duel is essential to winning the battle. Because the battle is won when we stop fighting. When we start dancing. When we start bringing ourselves into the place of joy and seeing the victory inside of us. That's what I've been experiencing. Now, that doesn't mean that the dark cloud doesn't hang over me. That doesn't mean that everything in the outer world has fallen into place. It doesn't mean that at all. But I sense something falling into place inside. And that's what people have said, Ron, it's not out there. They think because I'm fighting in the courts, because I'm doing this and doing that, they think that, well, that's not where it is. But no, it's all inside of me. There's nothing that I do in this life that's outside of me. And that's true of you. We are dealing with outlaws. But the outlaws, their modus operandi is hiding the truth as much as possible, denying reality as much as possible, turning their backs on the things that they don't want to look at, and they're doing the exact same thing that many people in their spiritual practices have been taught to do, because who do you think is the author of those spiritual practices? Do you think it comes from the God of love and the God of light? Or do you think it comes from the dark forces, the dark energies? Yeah, it comes from the dark energies. They're the ones that did it. Or, put another way, the dark side of us did it because we were uncomfortable with light. We were uncomfortable with truth. We were uncomfortable with reality. Because reality sucks! You know, admit it. Reality has been hell on earth. All too often. Not that there hasn't been moments of pleasure, not that there haven't been moments of bliss, but the preeminent and the predominant feelings that we've been assailed with have been dark elements, dark feelings, dark emotions, negativity. And we try to run away from negativity. And as long as we're running away from it, guess who's winning? Guess who's winning? It isn't the positivity. You may wear all your little positive badges and say all your positive affirmations, but if you're running away from the darkness, you're losing the battle. No matter how many times you try to convince yourself otherwise. It's only when you acknowledge the battle that somehow the battle is won. It's when you tell the truth that the battle is won. You're going to be outside the law of one or the law of unity as long as you keep creating and acknowledging is the wrong word. As long as you keep fighting the polarization that exists in you right now. When you admit it, look, I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling alienated. I'm feeling awful. I'm feeling like shit. When we start doing telling the truth, the plain truth, something miraculous happens. The thing that we're admitting is hurting us loses its sting. It's funny how that happens. I mean, I've seen it in love lines and workshops again and again and again. So much resistance. And then finally you stop resisting and you just simply tell the truth. And the very thing that was bothering you, all of a sudden there's a different energy around it. And nothing changed, and yet everything did. Because there's only one way that we can deal with these outlaws and bring ourselves back in to the sphere of the law of one, or the law of unity, or reconciliation. And that's by telling the truth. And the dark parts of us don't want to do that. The ego that wants to be on its own and doesn't want to be interconnected, which it can't help but being interconnected because life is interconnected. But it can pretend, and it's done a good job of pretending. As soon as we tell on it and let the skeletons out of the closet and are willing to go behind the curtain ourselves and see what's pulling the strings, all of a sudden you realize there's only a weak, scared being there called the ego or called the cabal. And they can't win in the light. They can't win in truth. They can't win in love. They can't win except when we don't pay attention to them. Except when we say there is no devil, there is no evil. When we start saying that, we lie because it's everywhere. Now, does it have an existence of its own? Well, perhaps not. But it has an experiential existence whether we acknowledge it or not. When we acknowledge it, we transform it. And I don't exactly know how that works, but it does seem to work. And all of the other spiritual practices don't work. We can fight till we're blue in the face, but they don't work. The only thing that works is telling the truth. The only thing that works is loving it anyway, even when it feels like your enemy. When you love your enemy, do you really transform your enemy? Well, I don't know yet how it works in the expanded world of my environment, but I'm feeling again how it's working in me. And I feel it, and I remember, and then I forget, and I go back and I have to learn it again, and then I forget and I have to learn it again, because it cycles. And it's like peeling the layers of an onion. Every time you take off a layer, there's another part of the onion there till you get down to the core. And when we get down to the core, all that's left is us, is life, is love. All that's left is reality. All those layers were just experiences to teach us, to remind us who we really are. We are more than conquerors when we tell the truth, when we love, when we are willing to be vulnerable. We find our greatest strength in dealing with cosmic and planetary outlaws. Thank you for listening. Namaste.